Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming to the La Rinconada Neighborhood Improvement Project Community Meeting. My name is Jessica Kahn. I am the city engineer for the city of Monte Sereno. Before we get started with the presentation this evening, I wanted to just give you guys a few house rules to assist you if you wish to ask questions for our segment at the end. If you are on Zoom, at the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. No one's monitoring the chat for substantive questions. Please use the chat only if you aren't able to hear me or perhaps see the presentation. If you wish to ask questions at the end of this meeting, please use the raise hand function to be recognized and to ask your question. Only attendees using the Zoom are able to use this raise hand function. There is no function to ask questions using the telephone. You'll only be able to listen and not be able to ask questions. So with that, I have a presentation, a brief presentation on this project, and then I can open the to questions. I will say on the top that due to the format of this meeting, I'm not able to answer questions on particular properties. As stated in the letters sent to each property, I am available via phone, via email here when City Hall has open hours and by appointment, and also willing to come to your individual properties to address any questions you may have on your individual property, but I'm not able to do that over the Zoom meeting this evening. So with that, let's discuss this project. Next slide, please. So tonight's agenda, I'll have a brief introduction, go over our project background, how we got here and why we're doing this project and the goals of the project. I'll briefly go over the layouts and potential impacts of the project, next steps and updates, and then at the end, be able to take any comments or questions. Next. So again, my name is Jessica Kahn. I am the city engineer for the city of Monte Sereno. I have an office here at City Hall. We are currently open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to noon if you wish to drop in, or I'm available by appointment. My email and phone number are on the slide and will also be on the slide at the end. The project design for this project was completed by RJA, and the contractor is to be determined. The project is currently out to bid, and we'll be completing a bid opening to see who the contractor will be next Wednesday morning. Next. So a little bit of the project background. This project is part of the Neighborhood Improvement Program, which is relatively new for the city of Monte Sereno. It was adopted by City Council in March of 2020, and the purpose of the program is to prioritize streets for improvements beyond pavement conditions. So things like curb and gutter, drainage, issues like that. Using those criteria, Xena Avenue, Natalie Road, and Clara Street, the three streets for this project, has received the highest ranking. Therefore, it was included in the city's 5-year capital improvements program for fiscal year 2021, which was last fiscal year. The purpose of a 5-year program is to be able to project projects and be able to plan for them both financially and just design planning wise. So a design contract was approved by the city council for this project last March. And survey and design for this project was completed in October of last year. Considering the big climate right now coming out of COVID, the staff recommended completing this project in fiscal year 21-22, and the city council agreed during their budget cycle. And so it was adopted in this year's fiscal year budget with the construction scope depending on bid amounts. And I will get into that a bit further into the presentation. Next slide, please. So the general project goals for this project is to improve drainage by the installation of curb and gutter, and also pavement restoration and or reconstruction depending on the individual site conditions. All of these streets are considered in poor condition. Street condition, pavement condition is judged on a 0 to 100 scale, anything less than 50 being considered in poor condition, and all three of these streets are less than 50. So the curb and gutter addresses drainage, as does it also improves pavement condition by creating pavement edge, which keeps it from like chipping away from people rolling over it over and over to get to their driveways or to their parking areas. And in general, a curb and gutter creates a very distinct roadway, so it's safer traffic movement for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Next. So here's an example of a neighborhood improvement project that was completed in 2018. This is Blanchard Drive. You can see on the top some of the general conditions. You couldn't really see where the end of the roadway was and where the end of the roadway was. It was pitted out in some places and just in different types of condition. So on the bottom is where the curb and gutter was created and gave you a uniform roadway. And this is the type of improvements that are proposed for this project. Next slide, please. So the general layout, there's 4 streets for this project. So Xena Avenue and Clare Street are proposed to get installation of curb and gutter on both sides of the street, and then pavement restoration or reconstruction. Natalie Road is a bit different. I have an image on the following slides. Installation of curb and gutter is only going to be on the east side of the street. And that's because on the west side of the street, there really is nowhere for channelized flow to go. The storm drain line in La Rinconada doesn't go all the way down to Natalie Road. If we put in a curb and gutter, it would concentrate all the flow into the low point of the street and flood the properties. So rather, we chose to pitch the street towards the east side of the street where the curb and gutter will be and channelize that flow around the corner onto La Rinconada Drive. The improvements on La Rinconada Drive are solely to take that water from Natalie Road and put it into the storm drain. So it's improvements only on the south side of the street between Natalie Road and Clare Street to get that water to the storm drain. Full pavement restoration is definitely needed on La Rinconada Drive. La Rinconada Drive is shared maintenance by the city of Monte Sereno and the town of Los Gatos. It is definitely on our radar and a high priority, but full pavement restoration of that street will occur at a later date, probably with the general pavement restoration projects we have annually. Next slide, please. So here I have an image. This is Xena Avenue and Clare Street. And again, it'll be installation of full curb and gutter, both sides of the streets, and pavement restoration. Next slide, please. Here's an image of what I was talking about on Natalie Road. So the green arrows show where the curb and gutter will be, and the flow, how it will go in on that curb and gutter. The flow off the street, as said before, will be pitched towards that curb and gutter, but there will not be any curb and gutter on the west side of the street. As you can see on the top right of the image, the storm drain pipeline ends there at Clare Street. So there is nowhere for the water to go without installing a full storm drain pipeline, which was just outside the scope of this budget, and also not in the city of Monte Sereno. That area of La Rinconada Drive is in the town of Los Gatos. Next slide, please. The improvements on La Rinconada Drive, again, are limited just to those properties to have curb and gutter between Natalie Road and Clare Street to get that water from Natalie Road into the storm drain there on Clare Street, as shown in the image. Next slide. So the impacts to individual properties. So there are typical impacts and then some atypical impacts. The typical impacts are relatively minor. A lot of concrete or asphalt driveways and walkways will need a portion removed and replaced with like materials. So here's an example, I believe is on Equestrian Way from our project last year, where that first square at the towards the street of concrete was taken out and regraded to meet the new curb and gutter. There will also be minor vegetation removal with the installation of curb and gutter. As you can see in the bottom left corner of the second picture, they did have to take out some of what appears to be maybe rosemary or herb bushes. Prior to the project beginning, the contractor will visit each property and let them know what will be affected. So you would have the opportunity to remove any plantings you'd want to keep. The moving of any irrigation lines that would maybe in the way of the new curb and gutter would be moved by the contractor. Next slide, please. There are some other properties that are more impacted, including tree removal, relocation of water meters or mailboxes to be behind the new curb and gutter, and removal of some private improvements that are within the right of way. This entire project is within the city's right of way. So this is where the city is allowed to put in public improvements such as curb and gutter and streets. You should have received a letter outlining the impacts to your particular property. Again, I'm available by phone, email, available to come out to your property to discuss any improvements with you and the way it affects your property. Next slide, please. So our tentative schedule for this project, bid opening is scheduled for next Wednesday morning, July 21st, 2021. The project was split into three parts by request of council. This is a very large project for the city of Monte Sereno, estimated about $2 million. And so they wanted it broken up to see basically how much bang they could get for their buck. The ideal is to complete the entire project. Depending on how the bids return, parts of the project may only be completed this fiscal year. So the base bid, if only one part of the project that would be done would be Xena Avenue. And then the Clara Street improvements and then the Natalie Road with La Rinconada improvements are what are called bid alternates. So depending on the prices and how they come back, the council might opt to complete one, both, or neither of those parts of the project at this time. The construction contract award by council is anticipated to be August 3rd. Again, the scope will be determined on this date, dependent on cost and the city's budget. And construction is anticipated late August through October of 2021, also depending on how broad the scope is. August through October is assuming all three streets have the improvements proposed. Next slide, please. So before construction begins, you will receive general notifications by the contractor. That's dates of work, the types of work for your specific street, segments, and anticipated impacts for coming in and out of your driveway, up and down the street during certain dates. Then the contractor will visit individual properties, particularly those that will be significantly modified by the project, but they will visit every property impacted at all by the project to go over things like moving vegetation or other items that need to be addressed prior to construction. Next slide, please. During construction, the duration again is anticipated late August through October, also weather dependent and dependent on final scope as discussed. Hours of work, just like every project in the city, are Monday through Friday, excluding holidays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Access to the streets and driveways may be limited, but there will be emergency access at all times. And you'll be notified ahead of time how your particular driveway and the streets will be impacted on any given date. Next slide, please. So for project updates, they'll be posted on the city webpage, which is the link that was provided in the letters. Also, if you went to the city homepage, cityofmontesereno.org, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom, and circled in red there is the street pavement improvement project that will bring you to that same page. Next slide, please. So my contact information is here on the bottom of the slide. I'm welcome to answer any questions you may have generally about the project. Again, I'm available by phone, email. City Hall is open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. to noon currently. And I am definitely available to come meet you on your individual properties to answer any questions you may have. So if there are any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand function on the Zoom client. Thank you. Okay, I have Ray Nguyen.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Jessica Khan. This is Ray Nguyen. Thanks. This is very helpful information. Thanks for holding the meeting. I have a question regarding on one of your slides. You said some of the vegetation and irrigation will be moved by contractor. Is that the city contractor, or is that contractor that we need to hire to do that work? And a follow up to that, it would be, you know, I'll reach out to you for individual property question as that's not as the scope of this meeting. But is there a guideline in terms of what the city would help in terms of the cost to remove, for example, vegetation and tree with the water meter and the mailbox?
Good question. So I'll answer the end of your question first. So as far as the water meter, mailbox, those type of adjustments, that is all in the city. That's part of the scope of the project. The city contractor would do that. As far as vegetation goes, the contractor will remove it but if it's something that you would like to keep, that would be on the individual homeowners to relocate on their own. So they will definitely remove it, discard it, but they will not relocate it for you. Irrigation lines, same, they will relocate it onto your property behind the curb and gutter, and that is also on the city contractor. Does that answer your questions?
Yes. Again, I have some, things that I need to remove. So I'll reach out to you, because individual property you mentioned is not on this call. So I'll follow up with you on that. Thank you for your answer.
If there are any other questions, please feel free to use the raise hand function on the Zoom client. Okay, well then seeing none, I will be posting this PowerPoint on the city website at the location where I just showed you all on the street improvement project page. Please feel free to call, email me, visit me at City Hall with any questions regarding this project. Like I said, the bid opening is scheduled for next Wednesday morning, and the award of contract anticipated to go to City Council on the first meeting in August. So with that, I hope you all have a good evening and feel free to contact me anytime.